Morning, guys. It's awesome. We are 25% funded, a quarter of the way there. It's really cool. It's sort of that first benchmark of, wow, this is happening. So, a couple of shout outs today. First up, I'd like to thank Annie. Annie's getting her own copy of the journal. She's never used it before, so this is going to be a new thing for her. I'd like to thank Cadder. Cadder is actually going to get a signed copy, so I now need to work out what wise words I can send through to him. I'd like to thank Christine. Christine's going to send me through a question. Now, Christine was one of my testers. She's a very artistic person, so there are elements of the journal that she actually wants to explore more. I'd like to thank Ross. I'd also like to thank Greg, my dad. He was also a tester that dealt with a very unique challenge during the process, but he's jumped on board. He's going to get a new copy of the journal so that he can continue his journey. So guys, the other day we were talking about feel, the emotions, our whys. Why do we do what we do? Let's jump into think. Think is our what. Think is about detaching the emotion. When I talk to people, I often describe think as that friend. You know, that no bullshit friend that no matter what you go to them with, any problem you may have, they seem to just cut through all the emotion and give you really good advice. That's what think is. Think is about becoming your own best friend. So you've felt the emotion, you've sat there, you've written free form, and you've let it out. Think is where you take the step back. You remove your own emotional investment. So basically, you take all the emotion, you throw it out, and you look at the situation, and you ask, what is happening in this situation that is creating these emotions? Now, emotion overcomplicates things. This is what often gets us stuck. When you remove it and you look at a situation from a factual, logical perspective, most situations are actually very, very simple. They're not always easy, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, everything will be puppies and kittens and everything's okay. But when we look at the facts of a situation and we recognize them, things do become simpler because we're taking out all the clutter and we're just breaking things down into like monosyllable sentences. This is this. This is causing this. And that's what think is about. So think is a big part in starting the idea of productivity. It's a big part in identifying where you are right now. And from there, you create action, you create do for how you are going to create change. Now, I want to mention one of my testers. This lady was a therapist, she's a counselor, and she was looking to expand her business. Now, we shared one of her entries, and it was amazing because the language in her field just spoke of frustration. She felt lost. She used words like chasing, searching, tired. She wasn't getting to where she wanted to be. And she let that out. She went through that process of just admitting to herself where she was at right now. Then she looked at what she wanted to do. She looked at her dreams, what she was hoping to achieve, the work-life balance that she was aiming for. Now, this was still part of the emotion. What she then had to do as part of her entry was she took all of that language out. Language is an important thing. And she broke the situation down. Why did she feel like she was always searching? What was she doing that made her feel like she was always chasing something? One of the things she said was that she was always making herself available, and that wasn't helping her cause. She thought it was, but in the end, she wasn't working on herself. So when she took all this out, she then looked at what the situation was and what she could do right now to start creating change. And a big part of it was that she realized that she needed to invest in herself. But how does she do that? I mean, you can sit there and go, I want to be happy. That's not good enough. So what she did was she worked out the simple actions that she could take right now that would put herself forward, that would change her situation and lead her in a new direction. From there, having identified the actions, she put them in place. She wrote them in do so that she could sit there and go, right, this is what I need to do right now. Once she did that, she created her next action. This is what I need to then do after that. And it worked beautifully. By breaking down the process into feel, think, do, she gained some clarity and some focus around where she was and what she was aiming for. So a big thing of think is, as I said, it's the start of productivity. In feel, we deal in dreams. Think is where we start to deal in goals. Now, I come from a corporate background, as I said, and I dealt with a lot of stress. Not mine. I was never stressed at work, but with the people I was coaching and the people I was helping. And I would sit there and listen to them, and there were so many emotional words in what they were doing. They were tired, they were frustrated, they were angry, they were happy, they were hopeful. But when I sat there and asked them, okay, so, what is the actual situation that is causing this frustration? A lot of people stopped because they were caught in that emotion and they hadn't looked at what the actual situation was. And this is where think started to develop, because I'd sit there and go, okay, right, take the emotion out. What are the facts? What is actually happening right now? And we'd write them down, and they'd break it down to simple things like time management. They'd break it down to things like high targets, or not enough meetings, or always feeling tired because they were working long hours. So we started to identify the situations. Once we started to identify those situations, we would then look at it and go, okay, how do you change that? How do you create the work-life balance? How do you use your time more effectively? From there, we'd move into do. As they started to list these things off, we'd write them down. And most of the actions were very, very simple. Feel like you're working too many hours. It's about work-life balance, and if people felt that that wasn't there, we'd create a simple action. Finish work at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, on the dot, shut down, go home, put work out of your head. What this started to do, for myself and for others, was in identifying the situation without the emotion, things weren't as complicated anymore. Things started to simplify. And by things simplifying, all the excess clutter that was there that came in, the what ifs and I should and all this sort of stuff, it started to disappear. People found focus. They started to focus on what was important, and from there, create action. So as I said, think is this no bullshit friend. It's where you draw the emotion out. It's that step between feeling and doing. It's where you look at things from a factual perspective and list it down, whether it's harsh or you don't like it or it's something that you're not sure how to achieve. You break it down to facts, and that allows you to then look at it from an outside perspective. This is not your problem. You are not emotionally invested in this problem, and you can see it as if it's somebody else's problem. From there, you expand on it. You explore as you need to. You work out the factors that are challenging you, the obstacles that you're coming from, and then you implement the actions to get past those obstacles. So guys, this is Think. It's the second foundation of the journal, and it's a natural transition into do. This is one thing I can't stress enough. People often think of journaling as being a bit of a struggle, or they think of it as just being one thing. It's just emotion, it's just logic, or it's just action. What I'm trying to achieve is to roll everything into a method so that you can work around it. And each will lead into the next. This is a cycle. Your emotion will lead to your logic. Your logic will lead to your action. In completing action, you'll create new emotions. So it's about finding loops, identifying loops, breaking existing loops. Now by breaking, I mean completing. And with completing these loops, you'll start to discover new loops within your life that will push you forward to new things. So Thank you very much for listening. This is Think. Next up, we talk about Do. All right, bye-bye.